Hello, my name's Andrew Roberts. I'm a freelance Google AppScript developer, and today I wanted to walk you through creating a sidebar in a Google Spreadsheet using the Materialize CSS framework and the jQuery JavaScript framework. So what we'll be working towards is what I've got demonstrated here. But what I'll do is take you through step by step based on the blog post, which has got the code in it. Okay, so if we start with an empty sheet, and then what we're going to be doing is opening up the script editor and copying in the code. So we'll just wait for that to load. Call it sidebar. And then if we go to Tools, Script Editor, this is where we're going to be putting all the code. Okay. So if we start with the first file, which is going to be a HTML file, which is going to be the main HTML file for the sidebar. And if we copy that in from the blog post, so some of the things to record this name. So some of the things to note here are we're got an include function, which we'll be defining later, which includes CSS, and another one at the bottom for the JavaScript. So JavaScript and CSS, to keep things tidy, are kept in the separate files. And another thing to note is how we're using the Materialize class validate and the required field, which is going to give us some basic validation in the form. So once you're entering fields, it won't let you do a submit until you've actually put some values into here and entered a value using type email. So when you entered a valid email. So the next file we're going to need is we'll pull in the CSS. Let's create another. Call this one CSS. So this has just got the Materialize CSS. And it's also just got a couple of custom functions here just to line things up nicely. And the next file we need is the JavaScript that's going to be needed on the server side. So if we come into here, then here's our JavaScript. So copy that and copy that into here. Okay, things to note here are, so in here we're including the jQuery, which we're going to be using for the JavaScript. Now we've got the Materialize, which is needed for any active fields on the form. And what we're doing is creating a custom on form submit trigger so that we can pick up and do our own thing, which is going to be passing the form back to the spreadsheet rather than trying to box it up into a post or a get and sending it to some server somewhere. And to stop it doing that default action, we've got this event prevent default. Otherwise, we've got some jQuery to identify the various divs that we've got, and these are going to be displayed and hidden appropriately. So we've got Google Script run, which do the form submit, passing in the form, and then hiding the form when we finished, showing an error if we get the errors back. This is quite a handy one, so we're using the status field to show the errors. Okay, and finally, we've got the server code. So this, take a copy of that. This is responsible for all the stuff that's going on the server side. So just to make it clearer, we'll rename that to server. And what we've got in here is we've got the standard simple trigger for on open, which will creating the sidebar menu. Then we've got the actual function that opens up the sidebar. Now here, note how we're creating a template rather than creating the HTML content directly. And what that does is it uses this include function we've got to pull in this CSS file and the JavaScript file. Now we've got our custom form submit function. So you can see the form submit's been called. It's passing in the form object from JavaScript, which is this call here. And what that's doing is simply pulling out the data, as you can see here, and appending a new row with those fields and giving a timestamp. And it also just does a double check to make sure that the results field actually exists before it tries to write it. So you can run this in an empty document as we're doing now. So we've copied all the data in there. So now if we go to our new sheet, and if we refresh that, so we can see we've got the new sidebar that's popped up. Click on that, can now open up. I will need to authorize this. Now this is not verified, but you've got full access to the code. There we go, can't quite get to the tab. Maximize that. So this just warns you that we are opening sidebars and we are going to be working with spreadsheets. Okay, once authorization is finished, run that again to open the sidebar. And here's the sidebar. So we've got a couple of fields here, got an example of the placeholder and the last name being pushed out of the way. There you can see the validation. So as you can see when you hover over, you get please fill in this field because we've got the required tab. And it's gone red at the bottom. That's a Materialize validation because we've not filled it in yet. We've got a password and those are going red as we empty them. Now if we leave that first name empty, put in our password and our email, and try and do submit, that's where it comes up and says you need to fill that in. So if we fill that in, but if we also invalidate that email, there again, see this is HTML5, this isn't Materialize, just warning us that that's not a valid email. So if we now fill those in, go submitting, and as I said, it's submitted okay, it's cleared that form, it's created the new tab down the bottom, and it's added down there. And now if you need to submit another form, you have to reopen, refresh the sidebar, and then you can fill these fields in again. Do a submission, and that's the same field. Okay, thanks very much for watching, and you can check out my website for more scripts and snippets on Google AppScript and my YouTube channel, or email me at andrew@roberts.net if you have any questions or leave comments on the blog post or on YouTube. Okay, thanks very much for watching. Goodbye.